Hello, my fellow residents. So I've got a kind of interesting story to talk about. Now, recently we just released a video on the Rerez Prime channel about the iQue Player, a Chinese-only released video game system produced by Nintendo. It's a really cool system, it's got a really neat history, but people really weren't angry about that video per se. Why they were angry was because I said this thing was rare, and that got people really upset because they've seen this before, if they knew what it was, and they searched it on eBay and Amazon.com, and they were like,
well, I can buy it for $100 or $200. It can't be that rare.
Okay, so let's talk about this, because I think it's an interesting topic. First off, this system really only had about, as far as I can tell, maybe less than 500,000 units sold. We really can't be certain. Nintendo doesn't release the numbers for iQue sales in mainland China, and I don't know if there's a legal reason for that, but we just don't know how many they've actually sold over there. One thing I can tell you though is that this system was only sold in one region. Compared to other video game systems Nintendo has sold, like the Nintendo 64 or the Super Nintendo, which were sold in multiple regions like North America, Europe, and Japan, all over the world. And those systems have sold multiple millions of copies in units. But this thing here, we know for a fact, couldn't have sold millions of copies because it just couldn't have. Limited to one region, that's almost near impossible, specifically in an area where video game consoles were largely banned for quite a while. This system here just probably didn't do very well, which led to it not being a very popular system for many people in China. Now, I've talked to a couple of people that actually live in China who have dealt with these video game systems in the past, and they've told me that these things are remarkably unpopular in the region, and a lot of them really didn't sell. So yeah, that's probably a thing why this was not so popular anywhere else. But another reason why this thing is not very popular outside of China is because this is only loaded with Nintendo 64 games. And like everyone else who wants to play Nintendo 64, they just get a console and play in the Nintendo 64. Also, one funny thing about the iQue Player that probably affected its value in North America and everywhere else. In order to use the iQue Player in North America, you need one of these, an up-down AC converter. Because essentially what happens is in China, they use a different form of power than we do in North America. So if you're to plug an iQue Player up to a normal outlet that we have, you break the thing. I don't know exactly what would happen. I believe it would actually just burn or set on fire or something, but I didn't want to plug up this iQue Player to test it because that would have been really mean to the person that lent it to me. So this is the kind of thing that makes this system kind of less valuable in terms of price, but it is still a rare or oddity essentially. Now, also, what I want to talk about was the perceived notion that a rare video game device, console or game itself, would be worth a lot of money. In some instances, that is true. Some rare video games cost a lot of cash. But in other instances, the perceived value of the product doesn't really affect how rare it is. This right here is Hilton Ultimate Team Play. It's the rarest PSP game ever made. But what's funny about this is that I only paid $5 for this game. And honestly, I don't really know anyone else that owns one. So as long as that's a fact, whatever I choose to sell this game at will set the price for how much these are worth in the wild. Now that's essentially how trade and prospective value on these things work based off of what people are actually willing to pay for them at the time. Because I paid $5 for this thing, right now it's only worth $5. If somebody else finds one that they choose to spend $200 on it, it's worth $200 at that time of trade. Now essentially, why I'm bringing this up is because of Earthbound. When Earthbound came out in North America, they produced tons and tons of cartridges. There's a whole bunch out there in the wild, but what ended up happening was the game wasn't that popular. So the game lost its value at one point, and then people started to realize how much they actually did like this game, and they wanted to go out and buy copies. And when they did, because of the demand of the thing, they needed to go out and spend a little bit more than they were expecting. People that bought the game initially would sell it at a higher value, and the higher value caused a fluctuation in how much Earthbound carts were worth. Nowadays, Earthbound cartridges can go for $100 to $200 because Nintendo did not re-release this game in any other format until the Wii U came out. And for some people, the Wii U version isn't good enough because that's still technically an emulation, and die-hard people want to play the Earthbound game on its original platform of choice without any console emulation. So that's why that cartridge can cost a lot of money, simply because people just value it higher up. That doesn't mean there's less units of that out there than this or perhaps this PSP game. It just means that people are willing to spend that much more on that game because they want it so much. When people buy video games at some certain cost that's pretty rare or whatever, they're setting the price however they want because there is no suggested retail price on a rare video game. People make their own prices, but rarity does not mean it costs a lot of money, and just because something is really expensive doesn't mean it's rare. Those things are fallacies, and they don't mean anything at all. So basically, all I'm trying to say in this video is this: the perceived value of a rare video game is exactly what you're willing to pay for it. If somebody is saying, oh, this game is $300 because only 500 exist, well, that's because he set the price at whatever that thing is. That doesn't mean that the game is worth that much, it just means that's what people are willing to pay for it. So in the future, if you see one of those games out in the wild and it has a really high price tag on it, take a second glance and wonder if you really should be paying that much for something that may not even be that rare to begin with.
僕ですか